Thanks for tuning in to Mirror Now. You're watching The Big Story with me, Avni Raja. First up, a quick look at the headlines. Journalists in the National Capital say suspension of 2 police officers demands stricter action against cops who assaulted journalists on Friday. Home Minister asks police to ensure, chief to ensure action. Seven encounters in 24 hours in western Uttar Pradesh. 3 most wanted criminals eliminated. 6 others arrested in a shootout in 4 districts of the state. Madhya Pradesh-based journalist Sandeep Sharma mowed down by a truck in Chambal. Cops failed to provide protection despite complaints of threats to his life from the sand mafia. It's day 4 of the indefinite hunger strike by Anna Hazare. Despite deteriorating health, the anti-corruption crusader refuses to give up his fight for the farmers of our country. Well, straight up to the big story that we are tracking. Australian captain Steve Smith and vice captain David Warner have stepped down from their roles for one match following the entire ball tampering controversy. Now, this move comes after Australia's Cameron Bancroft admitted that he tampered with the ball, while Captain Steve Smith said that he was aware of the plan in advance. 28-year-old Smith has been banned for 1 test match, fined 100% of his match fee by cricket's world governing body. Now, visuals that will just come up for you on your screens. Footage of Bancroft taking out a yellow tape from his trouser pocket before rubbing the ball. Bancroft has been fined 75% of his match fee and 3 disciplinary demerit points. Cricket Australia, meanwhile, has begun an investigation and a probe into this entire case. Our phone lines are open at this point. Call us, share your views. Do you think that there should be stricter rules as far as cheating is concerned? Let's first go across to my colleague Karishma, who's joining us at this point. Karishma, we can see the visuals of what happened. If we just sort of rewind a little bit first, and if you can take us through what really happened, how did it sort of come to light, and what happened at that point when it was discovered?
Well, yes, absolutely. You know, after the South Africa incident, we've seen another video doing the rounds. That is about the Sydney test in England, where Bancroft was seen taking sugar granules in his pocket. And in South Africa, obviously, we saw, Bancroft using a yellow tape in his hand and trying to change the condition of the ball, tamper the ball. But, just in South Africa, he's gotten caught, and now he's being quizzed by the Cricket Australia investigating committee. Next to be quizzed very likely will be, Steve Smith and David Warner. We are also getting to know that David Warner is very, very unlikely to play in the Johannesburg test. Stephen Smith is already banned from playing that test. So, clearly a lot of development and a lot of action is taking place as far as this entire story is present. But, one would have to really say, after getting into the depth of this, after seeing the England video, the one that Bancroft did in Sydney using the sugar granules, that, Australia indeed are habitual offenders. And this is not the first time like something like this has happened. This is probably the first time that South Africa, have gotten caught and have had to admit it, that, they were indeed trying to tamper the ball and change the condition of the ball.
Right, Karishma, I request you to stay with us. Let's listen into some of the reactions that have come in. One is from Tim Payne, who's a stand-in captain for Australia at this point, as well as the South Africa captain, on how they reacted to this.
The whole opportunity for us going forward now is something that we can learn from, and something that we can, I suppose, try and control how we are seen going forward by our Australian public, and become the team that we want to become, and they want us to be seen as. So that's an opportunity going forward.
Obviously, he's trying to take responsibility. So there's right in that. But there's also a right in that own people are responsible for their own actions. So I don't know what the right answer is there. I can understand it's a really tough time for him to be in right now. Obviously the situation that I was in was really difficult for me as well, because people were attacking me and my personality and my character, and I felt it was wrong, it wasn't fair. I don't know how he feels about his own personal situation, but I can imagine that it's a really tough time that he's going through.
Do you think that incident was worse than what you did?
Yeah, well, for me, yes. Ball shining versus ball tampering is two, I think, very different situations, and one is definitely much more serious than the other.
Meanwhile, Cricket Australia's two-member committee is due to submit their report with demands growing for Smith to be banned for his actions. Now, Smith received a mere rap on the knuckles from the ICC with a one-match ban. But back home, the repercussions could be far worse. The Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull too weighed in and slammed Steve Smith as well as the leadership, which has left Australian cricket with a black eye. Listen in to what Malcolm Turnbull really had to say, and after that, what my colleague Viren really explained some of these details.
It seemed completely beyond belief that the Australian cricket team had been involved in cheating. After all, our cricketers are role models, and cricket is synonymous with fair play. How can our team be engaged in cheating like this? But I have to say that the whole nation, who holds those who wear the baggy green up on a pedestal about as high as you can get in Australia, certainly higher than any politician, that's for sure, this is a shocking disappointment, and it's wrong, and I look forward to Cricket Australia taking decisive action soon.
Well, Steve Smith will also learn what happens to his international career when he, in fact, when the Cricket Australia's inquiry committee puts together their report, which is expected to be ready either by late Tuesday night South Africa time or early morning Australia time. That is what the timeline that they've set themselves. Cricket Australia's CEO James Sutherland is also on his way to South Africa to try and get a handle on things, to in fact learn firsthand the findings of that committee and then decide what action needs to be taken, not only against Steve Smith but against the rest of the team, those who are involved in the conspiracy to in fact tamper with the ball at during the third test there in South Africa. Now, it's not just Steve Smith though, as we know. David Warner stepped down as Australia vice captain, and now we could also see him in fact take a step back in the IPL. David Warner it was set to lead the Sunrisers Hyderabad for the new season of the IPL, but the fact that he was also part of that quote-unquote leadership group of the Australian team that in fact decided to tamper with the ball means that he could also not only face the repercussions of Cricket Australia, but also face the repercussions in the IPL, where he could either, because the Cricket Australia is banned, not be able to play part of it or the entire portion of it, or for that matter be relegated to just a playing member of the team and not as captain, because as we understand, Shikhar Dhawan is being readied in fact to take the reins of captaincy at the Sunrisers Hyderabad.
Like Viren was pointing out, Smith has stepped down as the captain of Rajasthan Royals for the IPL 2018 season. Ajinkya Rahane will now lead the team. Here's what Rajiv Shukla had to say.
Well, I mean, we are seized with the matter and we are watching the situation, and we are taking all the updates, whatever is happening in Cricket Australia and what ICC is going to do in a day or two. So we are awaiting for ICC to decide on it, what exactly they are deciding on it, and Cricket Australia also we are following what they are doing, and then we will take our decision as early as possible.
So IPL is our own product. Do we really need to wait and see what ICC is doing about it?
Definitely, ICC is, is a parent organization, and they are also, they have got their players' regulations. Everything is in place. We have got also our players' regulation. So our series is going to begin from 7th of April. Our league is going to be, so we have got time. So let's see what happens.
Right, joining me on the phone line is Saad bin Jung, former cricketer. Thank you very much, Saad, for joining us today on the show. My question to you is, of course, we will know by tomorrow what Cricket Australia really decides on how to take this further in terms of what action is to be taken. But there will be a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes, of course, is on Cricket Australia, especially because the Australian Prime Minister has stepped in and asked for strict action to be taken.
Well, listen, the Prime Minister should have stepped in like 60 years ago. The Prime Minister should have stepped in when I wrote in 2000 that Australia was cheating. The entire government, the Australian Cricket Board, everyone knows that people in the world think you're cheat, that you are breaking the rules, that there are written and unwritten laws, that and you just don't follow the unwritten laws. You don't believe in the spirit of the game. So, for heaven's sake, wake up, and it's about time you woke up, Mr. Prime Minister. You should have woken up many years ago. But on the other hand, where the BCCI is now taking a very soft stance, for what? BCCI, please understand that someone has cheated. There is an immorality that has been committed. You need to take a strong stance now. You have never taken a strong stance in your life when someone has been immoral. It's about time you did. Whether it's a question of forgiving Smith or not because he stood up and he took the blame, that's a different argument. But BCCI must take a strong stance irrespective of what ACB or what the ICC does. We're not cows that follow the leader,
And in fact, that's exactly what's happening because we keep hearing that we will wait for Cricket Australia, we will wait for ICC, we will wait for other people to take action and then we will decide what to do.
What for heaven's sake? We contribute 70 to 80% of the funds that go to the ICC. We are the kings in the ICC. We should decide. We should take a stance. And especially where there are issues of morality and ethics and spirit of the game are concerned, it's time that the BCCI stood up now and said, hang on, guys. This is not cricket. This is not acceptable by us. And this is our decision. We don't give a damn what the ICC says. We don't give a damn what ACB says. We stand alone on the ethics and morality of this game. For heaven's sake, be a man for once.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, Saad, completely agree with you. Just looking at this, slightly zooming out a little bit on this whole issue, this, of course, has happened in the past, like you've also just pointed out. But this time, for the way it was done and the way it was admitted by those involved about the premeditated way it was planned out, do you think it's going to be a much more defining moment about how the game really progresses from here?
No, I think the sign is really dangerous here because you see the entire setup has been compromised. It's not one player or two players. And I've seen this in my own villages where I work in far-flung areas in India where the villagers, the youngsters go out, steal something, come home, and they're all having a party, including the elders. There's no one there to tell them that, hang on, guys, this is wrong. You've stolen. This is immoral. The same thing happened with ACB, with Australian cricket now. There's no one, when these boys are doing wrong, there's no one to tell them, whether it's the seniors, the vice captain, the captain, or the coach or the manager, they've all been compromised. And the association is kept quiet and the government is kept quiet. So there's no one actually who's telling them when they come home in the evening, have a party, they're drinking, and they're actually joking about these things. They're actually saying, I did this to the ball, I did that to him, I sledged him, I did this. I mean, you're proving your manliness by cheating. And this is the ethos of Australian cricket, which I'm afraid has to be broken. This is miserable. This is pathetic. It cannot be allowed by anyone who's an Australian now. I mean, I'd be ashamed to be Australian at this point in time.
Right, absolutely. And also, the fact, Cameron Bancroft, a young player who enters the team and is told perhaps by his captain and vice captain to do such a thing, that's the kind of environment that you're setting out as a team when other new players enter, and that gets passed down from generation to generation of cricketers in the team.
And you've just said it right. And you listen to what happens now, all right? So a youngster comes in and he's 19, 20 and he does something completely immoral and unethical and the elders reward him. Remember, there's always going to be reward. The reward might be that I'll give you more overs. The reward I'll push you up the batting order, or I'll put you in the team, or I'll make you play the World Cup. We don't know what the reward is, but the reward can certainly be given by the think tank. So not only is he doing wrong, but he's also being rewarded for it because there's no one who's telling him, hang on guys, don't do this. And that's where the danger is today, because the entire system has been compromised and a crime has been, a premeditated crime, like you very rightfully say, has been committed, and it's been committed, I think, by the entire system. Even the ACB, the Australian Cricket Board, is to be blamed because for 60 years they've done nothing about this. The unwritten laws of cricket cannot be trespassed. If you trespass those, it's no longer a gentleman's game. then you've got to just write all those unwritten laws down. ICC has to write every single thing down and say, you can't do this, you must walk when you hit the bar, you must do this, you must do that. I mean, it is ridiculous what they've done to cricket, these Australians.
Right, right. I'm also being joined on the phone line by Gaurav Kalra, who's a senior sports journalist. Gaurav, request you to just stay with us. I have one more question for Saad on this issue. As far as the laws are concerned, as far as what is put down in the rule book that you were just talking about, do you think it needs to be made, I mean, it is quite clear, but it needs to be made more clear in terms of what are the expectations from cricketers, what is allowed, what is not allowed? Do you think there needs to be more harsher punishment as well?
Thank you for asking this question, and I think we're the only ones who have actually asked this question. The thing is that in cricket, there were laws which were written and there were laws which were not written. And the laws that, that could not be addressed, things that happen on the ground, written law could not address that. The unwritten law or the spirit of the game would come in and address that, and that is because cricket was a sport played by amateurs. Now cricket has become a business. There are no amateurs. It's played by professionals. The unwritten law does not exist. It's only the written law, and you so rightfully said, put this down, that unwritten law, that unwritten part of being a gentleman no longer exists. It must be put down in black and white by the ICC. It must be made into writing, saying that this is it, this is the law. You trespass this, you go to jail. You know, it has to be made very clear that this is all now a crime.
Right, right. Gaurav Kalra, I'm going to come to you now in terms of, as far as another point that Saad was making with respect to whether the BCCI should take a stand independently, irrespective of what Cricket Australia or the ICC does. What is your view on that?
Well, as things stand right now, it is quite clear that that Cricket Australia will take some very stern action on these players. And I think it's sensible on the part of the BCCI to just wait and find out what that is. There is an inquiry already on. Steve Smith is already not playing the final test match, and we now hear that even David Warner will not play that final test match. So in the next couple of days, it will be clear the decision that Cricket Australia will make with regard to these players. If Cricket Australia do come down on them, as everyone is expecting, it is expected that these guys will get very lengthy bans, then I think that the question will come upon the BCCI as well as these independent franchises. Remember, a lot of these franchises have formed teams around these guys. Steve Smith has just been removed as captain of Rajasthan. David Warner led Hyderabad to an IPL win in the past. He's their most important overseas player. So all of these decisions will have to be made in conjunction with these franchises. I don't think there's anything wrong at all with just waiting to see how the Cricket Australia process plays out.
Right. Gaurav, request you to stay with us. Let's get in some voices of some of our viewers. Karthik is calling us from Bengaluru. Hi, Karthik. Go ahead. What is your view? What would you like to say?
My point of view is premeditated ball tampering is as good as match fixing to me. Because the whole team is trying to cheat a game to win it. It is quite blatant that the whole team management, whatever they are telling, like Stephen Smith, David Warner, Coach Darren Lehman, they all pre-planned this and they are trying to win a game by cheating. So my point of view, these players must be banned from IPL at least for a year.
All right. Thanks, Karthik, for sharing your views with us. Gaurav, I'm just going to, just taking that point that Karthik was just making. Of course, he's saying that it's as good as match fixing. But the larger perception as far as these kind of incidents, and in this particular one where it was such a brazen way of doing it and completely premeditated, how do you think this is really going to affect the entire perception of the game whenever these kind of incidents take place?
I've read and heard this view a lot in the last couple of days that this is similar to match fixing, and I've never heard more nonsense in my life. This has absolutely no connection with even the idea of match fixing. The fact that you underperform after accepting money from a criminal on the outside, to compare that to a team that is trying to alter the condition of the ball, a practice that has been known to happen quite regularly in cricket, and professional cricketers in book after book after book have admitted to doing this, then I think if we are going to apply the same standard of match fixing to ball tampering, then all of the great players in the past who have admitted to doing this in their books should then be, hauled up. Their records should be removed from the stats books, etc. I don't think, I think sometimes we get very emotional in the responses. The ICC has a code of conduct in place, and on the basis of that code of conduct, they've gone as far as they could have in the mandate that code of conduct allows for punishment.
Right.
Now, Cricket Australia will make a decision.
Gaurav, if I can just request you to hold the line. We have another caller with us, Captain Jaspal, calling us from Rohtak. Hi, Captain Jaspal. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead. What is your view?
Good evening to you.
Good
there
evening.
is a Hindi saying, "So din chor ke ek din saad ka." These have been caught after a century, and this is no way. It is a gentleman's game. They had to have a class, grace, and shame. The act we are watching is shameless, graceless, and classless. The people who are in this position, they should not be allowed to influence and make the youngsters learn cheating. They should not be kept out of place of influence. And our IPL has got a very high brand value. It is contributing to the GDP. We should keep it at a very higher platform.
All right. Thank you, Captain Jaspal, for sharing your view. Gaurav, coming back to you, I think just one more point of just looking at this from a slightly more broader perspective. These cricketers are often, and we do that in India as well, treated like stars, and when they should be looking at it as a duty and a privilege and an honor that they are playing for their country. And instead, we often see these kind of things emerging and sort of completely hampering the entire spirit of the game.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's lost on many people. Now, what is the reason why Steve Smith, David Warner, and the rest of this Australian team are facing the heat? Because they've cheated on the game. As a result of that, they've lowered their own estimation in the eyes of the Australian public and the cricket watching public around the world. So, in many ways, they are already now much lower in terms of how people believe them to be as athletes and role models and all of that. And like I keep saying, I think that, what we are not giving credence to is the fact that Cricket Australia will make a very strong statement. It is almost certain that these guys will face very severe punishment. So I think that the fact that they've made a complete, they've completely cheated, and they've admitted on camera to having tried to alter the condition of the ball, knowing fully well that they will derive benefit from it, has lowered them in the estimation of many, many fans around the world, and that will cause enormous impact on their reputation. And I think I would be very surprised, to be completely honest with you, if we see Steve Smith and David Warner in this IPL. I'm pretty sure that is headed in that direction, but it's not a call for you and me to make over a phone call.
Right. All right. I'm also being joined by Gaurav Gupta, who is the Assistant Editor at Times of India Sports. Thank you very much, Gaurav Gupta, for joining us. Do you believe that stricter punishment is required specifically in such an incident when it was such a brazen way to do it, and admittedly it was a premeditated decision that was taken?
I do agree that some sort of punishment is definitely required, but exemplary punishment, I still have my doubts about it, because see, ball tampering as such has been happening for innumerable for a long time in cricket. So it's not something new. It's not something that has just cropped up overnight. It's an evil that has dogged the sport for a while now, for a long time. Really, the thing is that because it has all come out in the open. And we are seeing a method through which the Aussies have done it. But the fact is that all teams do it, and there is a person who's designated to work on the ball, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, okay, it does look very serious. But also, if you go back to it, I think the Aussies are copping more flack for it. But the sheer fact that they have they unfortunately suffer from a reputation wherein they don't have a good reputation in terms of behaving on the field. And in terms of having run-ins with the opposition players, maybe that hatred towards the Aussie cricketers is now making them suffer more in this case. Because I do honestly feel it is a serious offense of a serious nature. But how long do we kick them out of the game completely? Do we kick players of the class and the stature of Warner and Smith out completely? I do have my doubts. I think perhaps a more rational decision would be kind of banning them for around a year, and maybe also obviously Smith has been already removed as captain by the Rajasthan Royals, and Sunrisers Hyderabad are expected and should take a similar decision. I think maybe that should be enough.
All right. I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Gaurav Gupta, Gaurav Kala, thank you so much for joining us with your views on this entire issue. Of course, we will know tomorrow what Cricket Australia decides. They do have the pressure of their Prime Minister in terms of taking strict action. So that we will know tomorrow. But the bigger question really continues to remain that just because something like this has been happening for a long time, does that mean that even though now it's come out into the open, it isn't becoming such a brazen way to do it? Should it not be given as much seriousness? Because there are a lot of mixed views coming in on how seriously to take this kind of an issue, and the most common answer seems to be that it's been happening for a while, so let's not take it very seriously. But whether that is the case, how seriously should it be taken, these are questions that still remain. Meanwhile, tomorrow we will know what Cricket Australia decides and whether this will in fact be a defining moment as far as cricket is concerned and ball tampering incidents are concerned. On that note, that's a wrap on this edition of The Big Story. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned tomorrow.